All right, I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast. But the QA, we like that part. That's the most important part because it obviously stands for question and answer as we make this an interactive conversation, kicking the show off every Monday morning, getting our week started right, but then also kind of taking a look back, sorting out how we feel about different news topics and stories as they develop, not just outraging on social media because of a headline. We like to dig just a little bit deeper, spend some time, sort out our feels, and we'll do it together. So, everybody, welcome to the show. Already seeing a great group of folks here in the live chat. JMan150, H2O Taku. We got Barry Johnson. Did any interesting current events happen over the last few days? I feel like we got a few things we can talk about this week, Barry. We got a conversation going on with Michael C. Apparently, some amazing images of the universe have just been published, and the website that we're trying to dig them up on is just cratering under the traffic of people looking at. It's just an astounding accomplishment in scientific research. We've got John Gao. I'm missing someone here. We got Ron. We got Murder. So we've got a good crew here ready to go. Simon says Hypno, saying afternoon. We got a good crew here just to chat. Hope everybody had a lovely weekend. Man, we're just starting to wrap up. We're just starting to finish. We're wrapping up tournament season in softball, and our young ladies fought valiantly over the weekend. But unfortunately, while we were playing in a district tournament, our girls are not going to be going to state. But it was some again. I'm just consistently astounded by the athleticism of like 9-year-old kids these days, and we went extra innings. We had tiebreaker rules in effect. The girls fought like tooth and claw. They did not go down quiet, and unfortunately, we just it wasn't meant to be, and we'll get them next year. But it was just an incredible effort from some really some just impressive young athletes. We've got one more tournament just to kind of wrap up the season next weekend. We're going to take one more travel game. And this is kind of like it takes the pressure off. We're not going to state, so it'll just be kind of fun. But yeah, so that was the weekend. I'm still kind of recovering, but I'm able to sit upright for longer periods of time. That's actually going to be a part of housekeeping. I feel like I'm getting back up to speed. It slowed me down more than I thought it would, but medical procedures do be like medical procedures do. So, I have to take a quick pause here. Al Zombino subscribed with Prime for 15 months. Al, thank you so much for subscribing on the Twitch and supporting this podcast and supporting production on these channels. I really do appreciate it. Kind of helps keep the ball rolling here. Keeps us talking about the tech news, keeps us engaged, keeps us chatting, and I appreciate you. I still have not figured out what the heck is going on with my workstation from like 3 weeks ago where my audio died just as I pushed live to 2 weeks ago where USB devices were just not working right on my PC to today where this is like the best everything's been running. Knock on wood, I just jinxed the whole show. I can't make heads or tails of it. So I'm actually planning just like a full system tear down, rebuild, new motherboard. I'm overdue a CPU upgrade. Doing fine on my GPU. It's just like, man, there's so much going on. I don't want to take that time. I don't want to take the time to rip open my PC case and swap a whole bunch of components. But Al Zombino, thank you so much. You get the embarrassingly long-lived, I thought I'd be done doing this by now, a cappella fanfare of glory. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sound effects will eventually come back to this podcast someday. It'll happen. Who knows? Who knows when, but it will. So it's great. Um, Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We've got some housekeeping to take care of. This week's lineup of articles and stuff is pretty interesting, and quite a bit of it kind of came through chatting on the private Discord and on the Patreon. So this is like a news-heavy show, but we're going to have some interesting news to talk about once we get to the second half. We start talking about some gadgets, and I don't cover gaming as hard as I used to. Like, I had so much fun chatting gaming and tech and stuff when I was on Newegg. And you know, we wanted to talk about gaming PCs and consoles and actual games. And I just find like without that, adding gaming to my current repertoire of like mobile and mini PCs and stuff like that just feels like I'm taking one of my hobbies and turning it into yet another part of my job, and it sucks all the fun out of gaming. But when we have that intersection of hardware and gaming, then I think we've got some interesting things to talk about, even if I'm not always sharing my exploits with what games I'm playing, because I'm an old man and I don't have as much time to game as I used to, and I'm probably boring to a lot of people out there. I'm like, the game I'm most looking forward to over the next year is the RoboCop. Like, almost, it's basically a DLC, but it's kind of like a standalone episode to Rogue City. That's what I'm most lit up about. And if it's not me just grinding away on Hades 2 after that most recent update, then I'd probably be boring you all to death. Oh, Michael Peppertech, some sound effects guy. Yeah, they're not great, but I do them. So, let's jump into a little light housekeeping, just some of the stories and some of the events that I participated in over the last week. The big video, and increasingly, like, I'll put together a phone review, and it's like, this could be like 5 minutes. I just share some of my thoughts. 2025, unfortunately, is proving true that the nuance of every phone review is maybe last year's phone could be a better fit for your needs and you'd save money. From Xiaomi 14 Ultra to 15 Ultra, from Vivo X100 Pro to X200 Pro, Galaxy S24 Ultra to S25 Ultra, and especially when we're talking about these ultra tier devices, so much has gone into the pricing of these phones, and component prices have increased, that I get to the end of the video and I feel like I'm on repeat. Well, we had to sacrifice a few features over here to get a more powerful chip over here, and prices still went higher. They just didn't go even higher enough more, right? So maybe instead of the S25 Ultra, you save a little bit of money and get yourself a deal on an S24 Ultra. So then something wacky comes around, and it's just all upgrade. But it's such a niche device that I kind of have to be silly in my enthusiasm for it. I'm gilding this a little too much. This is, of course, one of the major videos that I put out last week. The 8849 Tank 4 Pro review, an absurd phone upgraded. So last year I spent a little time with the Tank 3 Pro and the Tank 3S. This year, on the Tank 4 Pro, we're still seeing some of those compromises. There are a few features whittled back from the 3 Pro to the 4 Pro, but this is just, I had it on my desk. Where did I put it? It's a ginormous phone. I couldn't possibly have lost it. Oh, it's right over here. So yeah, it's this like humongous brick of an internet-enabled appliance. And there are, just like I was saying before, there are a couple compromises over the 3 Pro, but then everything that I think people will care about in a big, rugged, chunky boy, thick boy like this is all upgrade. It is kind of wild to see this collection of everything in the kitchen sink hardware where even the projector, this has a built-in projector, it's got a built-in cooling fan, even the projector is upgraded over the 3 Pro. So it was just kind of a refreshing change of pace to say, like, yes, you're absolutely correct. One of these little features and one of these little camera things, that's going to be a bummer if you really liked that stuff on the Tank 3 Pro. Otherwise, everything else is better. It's more powerful. Yeah, I'm going to let the video do its own thing. But it's it's getting pretty rough out there for phone reviews when I'm turning to Unihertz, being like, "Hey guys, isn't this cool?" It's the Unihertz team seems to know what's going on. See, my Pepper Tech, there's this feeling, right? There's a vibe. MPT says, I haven't done a phone review video in a while and I don't really miss it. I have more fun with other tech accessories, hubs, docks, etc. And again, it's one of those things where the stuff that I care about the most is not stuff that is organically getting searched for by brand name that often. So when I start talking about some of these accessories, if I can't staple Apple or Samsung to it, then there's no traffic. For my Acasis videos, I had those really cool SSD enclosures. The only way I could get traffic to that tube was to talk about it being a MacBook dock for your Apple MacBook. For Apple fans using Mac OS on MacBooks with Apple, here's a way to get 2 SSDs. Like, this is so stupid. It's pretty wild. I feel we're missing many opportunities to make better and more interesting core computing devices. And you're not wrong, MPT. All of the accessories that we can use to flesh out a phone are kind of more interesting. I'm looking at some smartphone camera accessories coming up soon. And the biggie is going to be, I think this will be a fun showdown against first-party cases and kits and lenses and stuff. Wes Easton, an apple a day will leave you broke and frustrated. And you're not wrong. I wish I could afford an apple a day. So, Unihertz 8849 Tank 4 Pro. Also, just like a little mini bit in that video talking about my experiences back in January. Just having to deal with the fires and having these crazy rugged phones. The other biggie that was kind of a win for me, just for how low endurance I was last week. Come on, screen share, let's go. There we go. I got to rejoin the crew over at Android Faithful, leading up to a milestone episode. So Android Faithful, the episode name is Chi 2 Brute, episode number 99. So we had a really fun chat, about 2 hours of just geeking out over some really fun tech news. We avoided talking about the Trump phone. I'm really glad we could stray from that topic. I just needed to talk about some wacky, fun stuff. And it's my favorite podcast to guest on. They're just a really good crew of nerds, and we have fun chatting out this kind of tech. So definitely give episode 99 a listen. What were some of our topics? Some of our chatter on the Pixel 10, maybe having Qi 2 support, Vivo support for the Apple Watch. I got real cranky pants about this new e-paper tablet from Boox. Is it Boox? Boox? So they've got this e-paper tablet, and one of the big marketing pushes that they've got on it is it's so thin. It's 5.3 millimeters thin. So I started pulling out other tablets like, this tablet is 7 millimeters thin, and it's thinner than its own stylus. And this tablet is 5.9 millimeters thin. And thinness isn't really a feature. I'll repeat this from the podcast. Spoiler, my assessment of thinness in the Android Faithful podcast is thinness is a lack of other features. I'm going to re-demo the thing that I did on the show. See, 7 millimeters for a full computing device like my Robo Incala. So this is like a full Windows PC with no fans, right? ARM chip, passively cooled, awesome system. It is thinner at 7 millimeters than its stylus. But the 1.6 millimeter difference that, again, when you look at what 7 millimeters is like in your fingertips, is the difference between an ultra thin tablet that you need to have some kind of stand or case for, and the ability to include a hinged metal kickstand on the back of the tablet. So I would rather all of our tablets be a millimeter thicker and have a built-in kickstand, because then you close it and it's just a part of the shell, the frame. You don't even know it's there until you see it. So spoiler, that was my big reveal on thinness for the Android Faithful podcast. I don't think I'm alone here. I feel in my comments right now, most people would probably say, hey, if you're not going to give me more battery, then give me a useful lifestyle practical feature like being able to stand my tablet anywhere at any time, at any angle, and not have to carry an additional case piece or tablet stand or something like that. Thin is useless. It's just aesthetic and to the detriment of everything else. And Michael Pepper, absolutely, too thin of a device can make it uncomfortable to hold and type on. Like how you're holding, like think about old man arthritis hands and thumbs and how like you grip and also why we still need a bit of bezel, right? How you're trying to hold the very edges of a tiny thin screen. It's pretty great. I love it. All right. Oh, Bradley Large is jumping in to say happy Monday. Happy Monday, Bradley. And then I just want to wrap up housekeeping. We can keep this pretty clean. We have had kind of a sadness. It's a little too far to reach. It's back there, but I'll just screen share the post here. It's not that serious. I mean, it's serious to me, but I'm that kind of nerd. So let me get this back here. And this was written up on the Patreon. Good night, Galaxy Note 4. I'll miss you. And this is kind of a longer article. I think it's almost like 2,000 words on my Galaxy Note 4, a phone that I think I got back in 2015. So it's an 11-year-old device. And with the exception of this kind of short window from like 2016, like the end of 2016 to 2018. There's like a year and a half where this phone was completely not being used just because I was using newer review devices. From 2018 on, the Galaxy Note 4 has been a constant part of my production. It turned out to be a perfect fit solution for things like running a little mini teleprompter that can connect to my camera lens. It was the last place that I would kind of proofread my scripts. It was this daily companion. An 11-year-old device was still in almost daily operation here in the Gadget Lab. And there were very practical reasons why newer, more powerful, fancier devices just couldn't fulfill what the Note 4 could do. So you'll pardon, like I did, I wrote about 2,000 words on like what this phone meant to me and then did it in this like kind of recap of where we're at. But short story, incredibly long. It looks like I have now suffered that eMMC, the memory storage failure on the Note 4. And every time I boot it up, it gets to kind of that Samsung splash screen and then it just boot loops until I pull the battery out. And it broke my heart. It's just, like no gadget is going to last forever. I had such tremendously good luck with the Note 4. I replaced the battery twice. So over 11 years, I was able, as a grown-up, to just peel the back off of my phone, take out the older battery, put in a newer battery, push the case back on, and then keep using my device without having to go to a repair center, without being told that it was too old to be serviced or maintained. I kept this phone out of a landfill for 11 years and just kept it and using it. Not just it was on a bookshelf like I've got some other museum phones, and I've got way too many other Samsung devices that are now puffy, and I've got to take them to hazardous waste facilities now. Note 4, don't have that problem. And it was this kind of like glimmer. Every time I pick up the Note 4, I think our phones could have done something different. Our phones could have gone in another direction. And that's going to be one of our gadget block topics, is we do have some news leaking out about a phone that follows a similar philosophy. If you want to upgrade the storage, you can pop in a memory card. If you want to replace the battery, it's just a couple screws on the back of your phone. It's not a heat gun peeling off a fragile glass back plate buried under other components and with a battery that's glued using just adhesives into the frame. It's just a couple screws. And then you can put it all back together and your phone's ready to go again. And that's the direction we could have gone from the Galaxy Note 4 and the Galaxy, what was it, the Galaxy Alpha? You remember that little mini phone that Samsung put out? My dad loved that phone. It was like a tiny little mini Note, even down to that like hard edge metal frame. Beautiful. Samsung could have gone that way and they could have been the anti-Apple. But instead, we know what they did instead, and they hyped up features that they had that the iPhone didn't have, and then they immediately flip-flopped and tried to copy Apple literally the year after. And they were punished for it appropriately. We got another quick shout out here before we move on. J-Man150 gifting a tier 1 sub to Webmeister Bud. J-Man, thank you so much. Not only for supporting, but also just like looping in someone else here on the Twitch. Webmeister, I hope you're enjoying the show. And thank you for supporting the channel, from watching and viewing and checking out this stuff and joining these conversations. And it's the good work. I'm glad to have some fellow nerds around to chat this stuff out with. J-Man, you also get one embarrassingly, hilariously bad acapella fanfare of glory as I sort out my audio issues. Oh, Ron Guido. Not even one fire. No, not one fire, but I have now 4 more Samsung phones that you can feel the screen is starting to bow. And I have 2, the Galaxy Active and the... I can't remember what the other one is. It's not the S7. The S7 is actually in pretty good shape. I think it's a Galaxy S6 Edge, where the battery has puffed so much that the back plate and the screen have completely like ripped out of the frame. And I've got them in this like hardcore airtight sealed container that I'm gonna have to like, you know, carefully take. The next time our neighborhood regularly does like hazardous material drop off. Like we did a whole bunch of like Sharps containers from our medications and some other stuff. I'm gonna take that there too and just say like, hey, just be careful. These are exposed batteries, and if they get punctured, it's a fire hazard. Okay, bye. Love you. Smooches. But I've got to start getting these old phones off my bookshelf, because especially the Samsungs, like more so than any other device. I've got older Huawei's doing fine. My LGs, not only are they not boot looping, like my G4 still runs great, my V10 still runs great, but again, in a lot of those, I could just take the battery out. If they were starting to get puffy, not a problem. It's the Samsungs have consistently, more so than any other, been the problem. It's just a huge, huge disappointment. Just a bummer. Okay, so you know what? I have some other stuff here. I didn't get as much done last week as I wanted to, but I want to move on. We've got news stories to talk about. Everything that we're going to be covering this week, housekeeping, all of the individual show notes, all of the links to all of the articles we're going to talk about, you can find on this week's blog post on somegadgetguy.com. I'm going to take a quick swig of coffee, and then who wants to maybe dig into my one big politics story involving Ted Cruz? That sounds like fun, right? Oh, I just got to hit this one comment from Big Nate, because again, I think Big Nate knows what we're going to be talking about later in the episode. I have the Fairphone 4, and the USB-C port might be going bad. That's a bummer. I just ordered a new one for $20 plus $10 for shipping, and can swap it out when it gets in, which is good. Almost seems like more of our electronics could be built that way. One of the other reasons I fell in love with the Note 4, this is just as I was becoming really, really good friends with Trisha Hirschberger, because we co-hosted a show on Newegg together, but we had kind of a mutual friend, and we knew her husband before they got together. And it was when I knew she was legit, when she had a Note 4, and she was like, oh, I can't believe this. I busted the camera on my Note 4. And you're like, oh, that sucks. Are you going to be able to send it in for a repair? And she's like, well, I think I can do it myself. and she ordered a camera module. She popped, you pop the back plate off. She ripped out the broken camera assembly. She put in the new one, and it worked great. She did it herself. It was like, she said it made her really anxious to be like, taking apart these little pieces and stuff, but like an afternoon of her time and just the price to ship the component she was able to fix her camera on the Note 4. And it's like, see, we could have walked a completely different path. Our electronics could have gone in a completely different direction. And I'll never fully forgive the tech industry and kind of Apple adjacently for hyping up some of the absolute worst trends in practical design for purely aesthetic reasons. Again, one of the reasons why I'm getting so cranky about thinness being the big feature again, because they're trying to make, every generation, they're trying to make our devices less and less complete, so we need to buy more to fill out the experience, and that it makes them more fragile, it makes the batteries burn out faster. We keep falling for this same trick over and over and over again. But I've certainly digressed. Big Nate, good on you. Absolutely love it. Fix that USB-C port. Report back. Let us know how the repair goes. I'd love to hear it. So, I'm gonna knock this one out quick. This is a political story. It's just a follow-up. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the Senate bill. Ted Cruz was tacking on to this funding bill that he wanted to eliminate states' ability to regulate AI in any way for 10 years. If you wanted money from the government for these other projects and rollouts in your broadband infrastructure, you are not allowed as a state. Remember, this is a GOP senator, so we really care about states' rights, except for when they don't care about states' rights. And unfortunately, it looks like that provision has passed a Senate Commerce parliamentary ruling. So this is coming by way of TechCrunch, written up by Anthony Ha. The rule, as reportedly written by Senate Commerce Chair Ted Cruz, in an attempt to comply with budgetary rules, would withhold federal broadband funding from states if they tried to enforce AI regulations in the next 10 years. The article goes on, we're not sure who's really supporting this stuff. Surprisingly, Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee is against this proposal. Now, I have to go to the Wayback Machine on this. In Tennessee, we have one of the most successful publicly funded fiber initiatives in the entire country. In Chattanooga, the Department of Energy helped subsidize the rollout of fiber to home, and fiber broadband is paid for by taxes. It's municipal funded broadband. And not only have they paid back the initial grant to the DOE, it's one of the most successful broadband programs, both private or commercial, in the entire country. And it was so good and it was so popular for the residents of Chattanooga that the state of Tennessee blocked any further public infrastructure. They severed the ability of anyone else in Tennessee getting to benefit from a similar program, and making sure that corporate interests were the only broadband solutions or broadband providers for the rest of the state of Tennessee. And one individual, Marsha Blackburn, was kind of instrumental in putting that block in place. So I'm not sure how earnest her protest might be here against Ted Cruz saying, hey, if we want to regulate AI in the state of Tennessee, we should be allowed to. That's a states' right issue. But something tells me she'll probably roll over if she faces any kind of actual pushback from other Republicans in the Senate. So just really disappointing. This hasn't been signed into law yet. We need to see if we can mount some kind of resistance to this idea. I mean, on the surface of it, it's a bad idea. But then when you really start thinking about what does it mean to enact any regulation on AI? What if you live in an area where your power grid suffers blackouts under heavy use? and an AI company wants to go in and sign a sweetheart deal with a power company. What if you live in Texas, right? Texas has worked very hard to segment their own power grid off of the country, and we've seen regularly how that doesn't work out well for Texans. But what if someone wants to invest in AI in Texas? You know, all the tax breaks and all the sweetheart deals and all the zoning and all the good stuff that companies love to talk about as helping their bottom line and increasing their share prices. Well, you start building data centers in Texas, that's probably not going to be good for power in Texas. So I guess you can't do anything. Texas, I guess you can't say, hey, we need to really work out what's going on here, because that could be considered a regulatory action against AI, and then there goes your broadband funding. So this is like such a petty, malicious, and punitive line in the sand that Ted Cruz has drawn. And it's, again, like so much of this government action, especially coming from the conservative viewpoint, is basically just designed to hurt lower income individuals the most. We're going to hold your funding hostage unless you let rich people do whatever they want. Time and 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 time again. This is what we're in for. So, developing story, need to keep an eye on it. Now let's see who supports it. Let's see what other senators contribute to this idea, who votes for this this funding package, this broadband package. And yet another data point for me to just think the illest of wills for someone like Ted Cruz. Because I forget, where does Ted Cruz hail from? Because he wasn't actually like a native of there. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he represents Texas. Funny that. I wonder if Texas suffers even more. You remember, I have this really great photo of him leaving the country when Texas was going through some of those really terrible blackouts. So I guess maybe he's just planning another vacation whenever Texas has another blackout and power is just getting decimated by like AI initiatives. He can just, spend some time with his family because he does such hard work in Washington. It's like a circle. It's like it rhymes. Oh, what's up? Bionic Scoop jumps in. One. What's up, Scoop? From Goat V8, let's see who else is going to get paid off by big tech AI companies. It's so funny to me because like like every day now, we're seeing that split of like investor business news talking up these AI initiatives, and then like streams of other articles, much lower visibility, much lower profile, just like there's no business model here. It's basically just theft. Another one of our stories is dealing with YouTube. We didn't know. How could anyone have predicted it would be this bad? And you're like, we're doomed as a species if we can't keep a basic fingertip grip on what the reality of this stuff really is. It's just ludicrous at this point that people are, I'm just so surprised. Aren't you surprised? I thought AI was going to be cool, but it turns out it pollutes. It turns out it gives bad information. But it's Google. How come? Huh? And like, man, I hate being this tech Cassandra. Other people in this chat, you probably are exhausted because you've been dealing with this stuff since like the initial like rollouts of what like Chat GPT was trying to accomplish. And you're like, yeah, this is kind of neat. Some of the stuff is kind of fun, but like, what is it? And what is it really trying to do? From Eugene Debs. The entire Congress basically is going to be paid off by LLMs in every other industry. There's like 5 members of Congress that refuse corporate donations. I think Bernie and the remaining squad members are the only people left that refuse corporate money, but that doesn't include bundling and money they get from the party apparatus. And like, if we ever wanted to solve some of these issues, we would need to talk about campaign finance reform. Guess what podcast is not able to host a nuanced and intelligent conversation on what that looks like? I'll stick to the techier sides of it. I feel real qualified to chat up like FCC and FTC. You know what? I don't have to leave it to someone else. to dig us out of campaign finance reform. That's not what this show's going to accomplish. So sorry if you really had your heart set on an hour-long political examination of the history of campaign finance abuse. Let's move on. This is another one that we just gotta keep an eye on. We want to see what happens here. Who wrote this up? Frank Landemore over at Futurism. Solar company sues Google for giving damaging information in AI overviews. And from later in the article, quote, this lawsuit is not just about defending our company's reputation, it's about standing up for fairness, truth, and accountability in the age of artificial intelligence. Nicholas Kasprowicz, I don't know how to pronounce WICZ. General counsel for the solar company Wolf River Electric said in a statement, first filed in a state court in March, the lawsuit was transferred to a federal court this week after Google filed for a removal, the Minnesota Star Tribune reported. It's generally uncharted legal territory. Can a company be held responsible when its AI spreads harmful misinformation? If so, it could represent a huge inflection point as AI companies have long tried to duck liability for the outputs spouted by their large language models. So let me open this up for people here. I feel, so someone argue with me, please, if you disagree with me. I feel Google is trying to have it always, not both ways. They are a platform and people publish content on their platform, but they also have editorial control over how that content is viewed. So they're not just a platform, they are a publisher. And they can choose what content gets more or less visibility. And now they have a system that publishes, for lack of a better word, new AI-driven content, but they're putting their label on it. You go to Google search, and information is created. This is unique, bespoke information. So what is this company now? What is a Google? Are they just a platform? Then I believe we need to sever the other parts of the platform from the publishing and the editorial control and the content generation. Those can't all be one company, because we're sliding rules for this company wherever it serves them the best. We're creating original bespoke content, which is lying about another company, but you can't sue us because this is an AI-driven system and we're a platform. So we're just a platform. We don't have any control. We publish everything. Except we don't publish everything because we have all these guidelines and we have all these rules, and we have an algorithm that sorts content visibility that makes our content the most visible. But we're just a platform. But we're also a publisher, but not really because we're a platform. And we're also an author, but we're not an author because we're a platform. And there's just nothing we can do about the AI. So if this court case plays out, unfortunately, the way this court case will play out, and if it goes up to like the Supreme Court, I doubt this would be a case that the Supreme Court would hear. I don't think it's going to go well for us in a lot of the more conservative districts. I just don't. I think this is yet another example of that kind of regulatory capture, the judicial capture, what we've been dealing with since the first Trump administration. A trend that kind of started back in the Reagan era and through both Bush presidencies. I don't think, if you care about this kind of nuance, it's going to go well for policing or reining in the worst aspects of this content. But some early court decisions, if this federal court, say we get a decision against Google in this first round in the federal court, that at least sets some kind of precedent for a few other companies to maybe argue while we wait to see what the appeals might look like from Google. This is also just coming on the heels. Google has just not been doing well in their recent court cases. So the popularity of the company seems to matter a lot on how these verdicts go. And Google not doing well in the courts for other anti-consumer and anti-competition issues, there are probably going to be some side, peripheral discussions about Google's impact on these industries, because they seem to take a lot of stuff, they seem to insert themselves in between writers, authors, journalists, content creators, and audiences, and then they try to play this card like they're neutral, or that they're an unseen force, not, you know, like not a heavy hand guiding this, but that they're just this benign system to host content. And I don't believe that any of that's true. So I don't see anyone arguing with me, so I guess I'm just pretty much always right. Keep an eye out on this. Let me see. I can't find what the name of the lawsuit is. Filed Minnesota. But if you look for Wolf River Electric lawsuit, you can kind of find more information on what's going down here. This is hilarious to watch, like Google try and defend this. We're putting our name on it. We're putting this information out there. We're letting our LLM make stuff up, but it's not us. We can't be held responsible for what our system does. Is one of the just stupidest legal defenses I think I've ever heard. This is another quickie that we can dig through here. This is a story coming by way of Reuters, especially for you iOS folks out there. Something to keep an eye on, because maybe this could lead to one of those like $4 checks coming from some kind of class action or some sort of punitive assessment of Apple's business practices. Apple must face consumer lawsuit over iCloud storage, U.S. judge rules. U.S. District Judge Yumi Lee in San Jose, California, said the plaintiffs in the case had sufficiently alleged Apple violated antitrust law by requiring iPhone customers to use its iCloud data storage service to back up core data and device setting files. Lee's new order revived the plaintiff's lawsuit after she dismissed an earlier version of it. She said the consumers added substantial new allegations about the importance of data storage for all iPhone files, including restricted ones like settings data. Apple did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So I like this, because if this goes poorly for Apple, maybe I'm hoping, I'm begging, but every time you set up a new gadget, I hate dealing with G Drive on Android. I hate it. I despise Google Drive. It is my least favorite of all the cloud storage solutions. I hate, with the fiery burning passion of 100 suns, how every other time I open a photo gallery, I'm now getting nagged to back up all my photos to my G Drive, to Google Photos. Even in third-party and in other manufacturer galleries, isn't it just so convenient that now you can link it to Google Photos, and I can eat up all of my G Drive space with the insane number of photos that I shoot that I'm not looking to back up. And it would be okay if on setup once I said, hey, I'm not interested in using G Drive to back up my photos. Don't ask me again. But I can't get that. It keeps asking. And if this goes poorly for Apple, I think it would be fun to maybe point some attorneys general in some states over to Google's business practices doing similar skeezy things. Like how on the Pixel, they recently changed the folder structure. So if you do shoot RAW, it used to be just your JPEGs would be backed up to Google Photos, but now your JPEGs and RAWs are all eating up storage, in addition to your video boost, right? So if you want the prettiest video out of a Pixel, the Pixel just couldn't possibly clean up that video on your phone. It has to go up to a Google data center and get chewed up in the cloud and then put back on your phone. So that video is taking up double the space, because the original unedited video file is up there too. So just buy more cloud. Just keep buying more. You just subscribe. Get that 2 TB plan. Isn't that great? Oh my gosh, it's so useful to have so much more storage when Google is like tripling the amount of storage space that is getting eaten up in the cloud. And same, I really like excuse me, I used to love the overall Microsoft 365 subscription. I'm very disappointed in Microsoft stapling Copilot and jacking up prices. And if you have a 365 subscription, you need to go and check your plan and make sure you can still maybe roll it back to a classic plan. If you're signing up for a new plan, I don't think they offer. I've tried looking, someone please let me know if I have this wrong, but I've tried looking. It doesn't look like you can sign up for a classic plan if you're signing up for a new 365 account. Look for some other type of cloud storage. But excuse me, similarly to how much I hate G Drive, every Windows computer that I set up, one of the very first things I do is go into add or remove programs in Windows 11, and I delete OneDrive because the backup and the sync suck so bad. And then you have this little thing in your dock, by your clock, that's constantly like, oh, well, we're backing up these files, and oh, this is a mismatch, and now there are multiples of this, and then your folders are all jacked up, and then we're going to download things from other computers onto this computer, and I don't want those things on my computer. Please stop trying to sync my desktop icons for files that don't really live on that computer. If it's my laptop versus my desktop versus my tablet, you have ruined all of this because of the cloud. So, I hope this goes real bad for Apple. Because if it goes real bad for Apple, then I think we'll have leverage to point to some of these other companies and say, hey guys, don't keep messing this up. Do this better. This is real dumb the way you're handling this stuff. And I think the plaintiffs in this case are now making a very good point. There are ways that I can kind of dig into some of my Android system files, things like backing up text messages. I still use SMS Backup Pro. It's an app that looks like it came out of Android 4, and it works great. And when I really need to switch phones and I want all of my messages to carry over, I don't do a phone sync because I don't want all of the garbage from an older phone polluting my newer phone. But I can very quickly, I can get all of my messages out of this bucket that should be more easily accessible and transferable. I can move them over, and my conversations, there's a continuity of conversation. I love it. That's great. Now hearing this complaint, it kind of makes sense. You should be able to say, like we do on computers, like on your laptop or desktop, you can say, hey, make a backup. Make a backup, make a system image, make a backup, something I can restore from. And then I'm going to take this big chunk of a file and I'm going to save it anywhere I want to make sure I can back up my system. Your phone, your tablet should be able to do the same thing. If I want to send that to my network attached storage, if I want to send my Google Android backup to my OneDrive cloud account, I should be able to do all that. And so Apple being forced to handle this kind of stuff, Apple being forced to allow users to do this, or just paying some insane penalties, it'd be fine. Just pay some money. Take some money out of Apple's coffers for doing business in a terrible way. Any of that would be progress. I would love to see that. And Go V8, this is exactly it. Couldn't your network attached storage replace cloud storage? So yes, except for the fact that because I use this box for so many things, this little network box full of hard drives is what I edit off of. It's also our Plex storage, but it's not our Plex server. One of the issues that we have is how we send and receive information. So my backups are pretty good because the NAS is able to download decently fast on my internet connection. The problem is getting those files off of the NAS is usually slower than cloud because I'm stuck in an area that only has 20 megabit per second cable broadband, and Spectrum sucks. I can't reliably count on full maximum 20 megabit bandwidth to get something off of the NAS when I'm out and about. So there are still situations and circumstances. Like, so for example, like I keep a little photo gallery of Lex. It's sort of the cultivated greatest hits of my daughter, and that's in a OneDrive folder. So that way, like, let's say my aunts and uncles, for some reason, all hit that folder at the same time. That's not multiple people uploading from my NAS at the same time because they wouldn't be able to do it. Even with photos, it would slow to a grind to a halt. So I still do keep some cloud for stuff like that. And then it's also just sort of nicer. I can kind of offload some of the bandwidth if I'm finishing a project and someone wants to see sort of like a temp render or preview of what I'm working on. I'll send it to cloud storage, right? So it's not to say that we should not have any cloud and that everyone should just have network attached storage, but if I could get symmetrical gigabit, that would vastly reduce my reliance on cloud services. As soon as I can get gigabit, I will drop Spectrum in a heartbeat. I don't care who anymore. If I have to do business with Verizon or AT&T or any other company that I really don't enjoy doing business with, I like Spectrum and Comcast so little that I will roll the dice on anyone else. And we're out, right? From Nick Northcutt, I agree. I think Google Drive is one of the most janky and horrible pieces of software ever. The automatic syncing is the bane of my existence. And the other thing that really pisses me off is how convoluted file sharing is. So I told you about this like over Christmas. We got to visit some family. My aunt, even though she's on an iPhone, she set up this Google Photos gallery of all of our Christmas photos. It was delightful. It pisses me off so much that the very first link she sent out was sort of account locked. So she sent it to an email address, and I tried to open it from that email address, but she hadn't included that Gmail account in her list of shared folders. So then I had to ask her, hey, can you approve this email address just so I can see what you sent? Then, while I was logged in, I couldn't download the photos. I could only add them to my own cloud storage. So Google is purposely making you duplicate and triplicate and quadruplicate this information. I'll give OneDrive some credit here. When I give you a folder on OneDrive, you just download that content. The immediate first step is not duplicate all of this stuff and eat up more storage on your OneDrive account. That's how Google is like manipulating the quantity of information. And then you end up with folders like, say, maybe someone uploaded some new photos to the original folder. Well, they're not on your duplicated folder. You need to go back into the original and then retransfer. So eventually she got enough complaints that she did figure out how to just share it as a link. And anyone with the link could get in and see it. And on a whim, I opened that link in an incognito browser, not signed into any of my Google accounts. And then suddenly, I had this little arrow that would zip up all the files and let me download them. Went back into my logged in accounts. Nope, I could only transfer them. I was downloading the photos into my cloud storage. I hate it so much. This is like the definition of being evil. Google, just don't be evil. No, you can't help it. It's the worst. Hold on one sec. Oh, Michael Peppertech, I hate every time there's a Windows update, they make me go through the pages from Microsoft 365 and decline it, and they try to get me to go to an online account instead of local account. And especially with my mini PCs, I'm not doing any of my personal online accounts. We're going local only. In fact, there's like a new text string. What is it? Do I still have it up here on my desktop? I had just like on my desktop for a while. I might have deleted that photo. I'll have to see if I can find it again. But again, during your setup, you just be like offline local account. I'm not playing with this. This is so annoying. Oh, and some other people just, again, like, it's kind of like cable now. These companies that we were so excited about when Apple introduced iCloud, this is a huge deal, and Microsoft with OneDrive. I loved the 365 account. The 365 family account was one of the best deals in tech. You had Office apps, you had Skype credits, you had a terabyte of online storage for every user in your family. This was good. And year over year over year, they just keep making it poopier and poopier and poopier. And it it just kind of validates a lot of these business ideas were not sustainable businesses. They were built on cool, they were subsidized by other parts of their industry, and now these companies are saying like, "Hey, we've got to start jacking up revenue. What do we do?" And they start making the service that you signed on for worse and worse and worse. I do want to. So this is a longer article, and I really hope you'll go to Ars Technica to read it. But I want to highlight it because this is kind of an ongoing part of. Actually, you know what? These two stories back to back, because we're starting to get to 10 a.m. and I was really proud of myself for getting through housekeeping in like 20 minutes. So I'm gonna abbreviate both of these stories because they're AI related. And again, all of these, I'm really hoping that as I'm talking about this stuff, and especially for you folks like on the audio replay crew, that you're maybe taking the time to check some of these links, because without giving these sites traffic, they can't keep making good content. And a site like Ars Technica really depends on that content because they're not really doing much with video. Their advertising and marketing and how they produce these written articles is kind of what keeps their site afloat. So please give them the click at least, if not engage and support in other ways, especially sharing. So this is coming by way of Ashley Bellinger over at Ars Technica. XAI faces legal threat over alleged Colossus data center pollution in Memphis. After thermal imaging appeared to show that XAI lied about suspected pollution at its Colossus supercomputer data center located near predominantly black communities in Memphis, Tennessee, the NAACP has threatened a lawsuit accusing XAI of violating the Clear Air Act. In a letter sent to XAI on Tuesday, lawyers from the Southern Environmental Law Center notified XAI of the NAACP's intent to sue in 60 days if XAI refuses to meet to discuss the group's concerns that XAI is not using the requisite best available pollution controls. To ensure there's time for what the NAACP considers urgently needed negotiations ahead of filing the lawsuit, lawyers asked XAI to come to the table within the next 20 days. So, there's a picture here, and I'm showing this picture on screen. So here's this massive, humongous data center. Well, Memphis, Tennessee is not known for having like huge energy generating, at least not that I know of. So whatever is happening with their local power grid, I'm sure building this massive data center to train AI was kind of a drag on their system. But then when you look through these photos and these thermal images, you see dozens of these little red and yellow hotspots bordering the facility. And it turns out a major part of the energy generation for this data center is coming by way of gas powered generators. I don't I don't know how else to package this for people, how bad this is really getting, because this is awful. Microsoft is 5 years into their climate pledge to be carbon neutral. They had a 10-year window and they said, hey, over 10 years, we're going to get to carbon neutrality and we're not going to be polluting the air like we were. We're at the halfway point. Microsoft emissions are up between 20 and 30%, depending on what report you follow. So not only have they not reduced their carbon, their pollution into the atmosphere in an age of wild weather conditions and global warming, they're up by a significant amount. And now we look at XAI and they can't even draw the power from the grid, which would be still polluting energy. But when you have a massive energy generating facility, I still have to believe that that is more efficient than having dozens and dozens and dozens of smaller energy generating facilities, and how much junk you're putting up into the atmosphere. People complain like, oh, well, your EV is still polluting the environment because of the power you get from the grid. And I would say that the operational pollution of a car is probably still minimized because you don't have energy generation happening in the engine of the car because you have these little motors and a battery. Now, obviously, you're going to start talking about, well, you ship the batteries and then you assemble the car and then the car has to be manufactured and there's carbon and pollution and all of this. But if we're just talking about someone gets into a vehicle and they push the accelerator and they go from point A to point B, I think the electric car probably wins when we think about how it got energy from one major source on an electrical grid versus the inefficiency of an internal combustion engine burning fuel in that vehicle. Someone will have to correct me if I'm way off base there. Now, leaving the car analogy, let's scale that up to a massive warehouse filled with servers and dozens of gas-powered generators being fired to power Twitter's AI, of how little benefit to society there is, how much energy is just being wasted. Who's using Twitter's stupid Grok AI? It makes me so mad that they stole the word Grok. If anyone hasn't, please go read Stranger in a Strange Land. It is a life-changing science fiction philosophical story that I adore. And the idea of grokking something is just this beautiful concept in the story. It's like to understand beyond just understanding. Love it. I love that book. I love it. And it makes me so mad that that's what Twitter landed on for their language model, which does not understand anything, is the opposite of what grokking really is. But on top of that, now they're just lying about how they power their facilities. They're trying to obfuscate how much polluting they're doing. I'm sure they're also probably burning through an insane amount of fresh water. And what are we doing? What are we doing? It boggles the mind just how bad all of this is and how it's going to keep getting worse. And again, in Tennessee. So remember back, it was just a couple articles ago, Ted Cruz was saying, hey, if you want funding from the government, we're going to say you're not allowed to use your state's rights to to regulate artificial intelligence companies, right? Ted Cruz is holding your broadband funding hostage, and you have to promise not to regulate AI for 10 years. And remember how I said, well, one of those things could be, what if you have issues in your state with the power grid and an AI company wants to go in there and mess around with a data center in your power grid? And now, someone correct me in the comments, or someone remind me, there was a Republican senator, and she was a little upset about Ted Cruz's addition here, where she said she she didn't think she was supportive of this idea that states should be able to regulate companies that do business in their state. I'm trying to remember, where was this senator from? It's weird. Oh, that's right. It was Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, representing the fine state of Tennessee. She totally screwed up on broadband distribution, but I'm trying to, no, let me just put the pieces together here. xAI's Colossus data center is in what state? It's this article, it's right here in front of me. The data center pollution in Memphis, Tennessee. I wonder if Twitter's AI use, or excuse me, xAI, such a, this man-child that pollutes so much of our tech news right now. xAI is firing gas generators to power their data center facility in Tennessee, while Ted Cruz in Texas, who has a miserable, the state that has a miserable power grid, is saying you can't regulate AI. And one of the Republicans coming up to say, hey, you know, this is causing us a lot of problems, this AI stuff. We should be allowed to regulate a company and say, no, you're not allowed to fire gas generators to power a data center. But again, this is also kind of part and parcel with, like, if it's a conservative situation, conservative facing situation, it only matters if it's directly affecting them. So if there's another conservative governor who's like, oh, well, we'd love to have this AI company business. Why don't you just come to our state and we'll be more amenable to them? And then something bad happens to them. Then they'll act like, oh, but this is a travesty. And how come we can't say you can't do that? When they could have just supported this from the beginning. These companies should have faced phenomenally stricter regulatory pushback on all of this, from zoning to energy to water. All of this should be pushed back. All of this should face some kind of regulatory scrutiny. But here we are. Good job, Tennessee. All that AI, you're winning right now. It's pretty great. Now, I promised I wasn't going to spend a lot of time in these articles, and this one I am going to just bounce right off of. But just check out the link. Please read up on it. I don't have patience. I have zero chill. I'm done trying to entertain people who seem shocked by the worst of this kind of news. Coming by way of CNBC, written up by Zach Valese. Creators say they didn't know Google uses YouTube to train AI. Google is using its expansive library of YouTube videos to train its artificial intelligence models, including Gemini and Veo3 video and audio generator. CNBC has learned. The tech company is turning to its catalog of 20 billion YouTube videos to train these new age AI tools, according to a person who is not authorized to speak publicly about the matter. Google confirmed to CNBC that it relies on its vault of YouTube videos to train its AI models, but the company said it only uses a subset of its videos for training and that it honors specific agreements with creators and media companies. So if you're like Viacom, NBC, Universal, whatever conglomerate is owning like HBO, Warner Brothers, Max, blah, 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 we won't train on your videos. I don't have any agreement. I know for a fact that YouTube is chewing up my content. If they're interested in it at all, I'm sure it's been sourced, because there is no opt out. There is no, it's a part of the terms of service. How are we surprised? What? Of course they are. And even if they weren't, they're probably turning to other companies. Like, for example, what happens when content from YouTube is shared on a resource like Reddit? So even if YouTube weren't, they still are. let's say YouTube firewalled all of that off and they said, hey, we're not going to directly train this AI, but we also have this deal for $60 million. We can go to Reddit and scrape all of the content off of Reddit. Okay, I guess they still are then, because that's one of the primary places that people will go to seek audience for their YouTube content. I'm tired of this, like, we just had no idea. I didn't think YouTube would steal from me. I thought they were just going to steal from other people, but I'm a content creator, and how come they're not respecting my content? And you were using AI to write a script, you were using AI to plan your shots. Now you're using AI to like make fake movie trailers. You're using AI to like edit your videos, if not completely create and generate your videos. Of course they were. Stop pretending that somehow you were the snowflake that was protected in a special refrigerated glass case, and just deal with the fact that these companies are ripping everybody off. That AI is essentially theft. That's it. That's all it is. I I don't know what else to tell you. So check the rest of the article here, if only just to kind of like fulfill the click. It's hilarious to me. When you saw like what Veo3 could generate in terms of video, and how it could intelligently pull off things like camera moves. The only way to get that data is to rip off films and YouTube videos that use sophisticated camera moves. If it's going to understand what a dolly is, or what a tracking shot is, or what a zoom is, of course, it ripped off all of that data from previously produced content. Comment here from Ken X. Tech Alter did a video on the AI craze where they are shoving AI icons all over the UI. I think it could be a push from CEOs because shareholders are demanding use of it. It has been over the last year. This has been a major talking point on my podcast, is look at the infrastructure that we're creating. A massive data center is billions of dollars of technology. That is an incredible investment that is being used to do what? What in XAI is generating billions of dollars in profit to offset, or I should say billions of dollars in revenue to generate a profit to offset the investment in making that data center? If shareholders are jumping into AI still, like they're thinking it's going to be this thing, they're idiots, and they are going to contribute to tanking the stock market, and that's bad for the economy. And of course, the poorest people are going to get decimated by it, and the rich people are going to, oh, it's just a shame that my portfolio took a hit. And there's no market correction for it. And millionaire CEOs will still be millionaire CEOs until some other kind of punitive aspect to this business relationship manifests. We're beholden to these rich idiots that keep tanking the economy. Think about the billions and billions of dollars that are being poured into data center infrastructure, how companies like Microsoft and who else just recently joined their initiative? So Facebook was investigating nuclear. Microsoft wanted to refire 3 Mile Island to generate power, but not for America, just for the companies to use AI. We want to build new nuclear facilities and refire up old nuclear facilities. But of course, taxpayers should be responsible for ensuring those projects. Taxpayers won't get to benefit from the power generation of new nuclear facilities. That power will go to data centers for rich people. And the rich people aren't paying for any of their liability. And when they don't get nuclear, we can see in XAI, they're just firing up gas generators and polluting the air even worse. So I'm glad Tech Alter is loosely trying to tie, well, maybe it's because CEOs are hearing from shareholders. I've been telling you for over a year now. It's a rug pull. After we went through the initial crypto phase, and then we went through NFTs, and we saw that hardware was being sold for things like NFTs, we needed to find the next fad. And the next fad was, what if we just spent billions and billions and billions of dollars more on terrible word autocomplete and spell correction. And LLMs went from being this fun little hobbyist tinkering thing on GitHub to being viable business models. But there's no viable business model. ChatGPT loses money hand over fist. They are so deep in the red on investor cash, and they're not generating revenue. They're not generating profits. They're still spending at an insane rate. And then an inexpensive Chinese model can come out like a DeepSeek and kind of match the performance of a Chat GPT at radically lower investment, radically lower energy and data center usage. It's a more efficient model. So what are we doing? So Goat V8, spot on. In other words, those that can afford legal action aren't used, but everyone else is fair game. Correct. I cannot afford to hire lawyers to investigate whether or not Google has used my content to train AI models, so I just assume if my channel has popped up at all on Google's radar that my content has been used to train their AI. If I had a couple $1,000,000 lying around to burn on extended legal action against Alphabet, we could take a look at it. It'd be kind of fun if this was the kind of support that YouTube channels had, like a Gamers Nexus can go and do investigative journalism. I'd be down, but you know, that's not what we're doing. It's not at all. So I'm gonna take a quick drink of coffee, and then we do have a couple fun, interesting, and gaming things to talk about. We're all done with the doom and gloom. I mean, we're doomed as a species, so while we're on our way out, we might as well enjoy the ride while it lasts. It's pretty great. All right, coffee and then more funner stuff. Okay. Oh, wait, did my audio just change? What's going on? No, that's great. Okay, good. I muted my mic and then still had to clear my throat because I'm real good at the podcasting. So, first up, this is something I'm just starting to dig into. Like, I'm just getting up to speed where I can take longer walks around the block. I'm gearing up for another camera review, so this is something that I might add to the camera review just to see where we end up. I'll be curious, anyone in the chat, have you been playing with Project Indigo? Project Indigo is a new app, sort of Adobe inspired. This is coming by way of so I'm trying to like break down like who. So Mark Lavoie and Florian Keynes are the sort of researchers and scientists that have created this new, more computational photography camera app for mobile devices. And they've written this. It's kind of like, it's almost like the summary to a study, to like a scientific paper, but it's one part press release, one part sciency. But I'm not linking to other articles about Project Indigo. I'm linking directly to Adobe's research page on this. And they go through to explain, you know, why are mobile cameras so good, and some of the newer cameras are taking these remarkable images. And then they're introducing their version of this idea, and they're calling it Project Indigo. I believe I don't know if it's available on Android yet. I know it's in the Apple App Store. But what this is we're trying to further improve the light and color processing of images through computational means, but when captured from smaller sensor phone cameras. And they're showing these like really interesting images. Like, for example, there's this really underexposed image of two cute old people eating a meal, but in the background there's this beautiful lush scenery. And one of the problems I have whenever we talk about computational photography is it's really easy to do a before and after, right? You can say like, oh, well, this image is so dark, and look what our camera did, it made it so bright. So when I'm looking at this image here, the two people are eating lunch and they're completely underexposed. They're just in silhouette, and there's this beautiful mountain scene, snow-capped mountain in the background. That to me is a problem of metering and focus. I don't know that a phone camera would really have an issue resolving this image. Now, I have to preface that I live out of Vivo and Xiaomi cameras for when I'm really capturing my most important memories. I've even given up on Pixel cameras. I don't use them because I don't feel they do a very good job of this kind of stuff. Vivo especially has this understanding of light. This is a very hardcore machine learning computational photography effect that goes into their HDR processing. But on a Vivo, I've taken numerous images dark indoors, bright window behind my subject, and if I tap on the face of the person, the phone understands, make them visible, and then the HDR mode will still rein in the brightness from the window behind them. I took a whole series of photos for my cousin. He was getting married, and they were doing this like private religious ceremony with his wife's family, and their setup was this beautifully decorated sort of ornate sitting room area, but they were directly in front of this window. And this window had this gorgeous Southern California, blue skies, green rolling hills. It was just this insane vista that was behind them. And on my X100 Pro, every time I took a photo of them and I tapped on their face, the phone would still HDR computationally process the image behind them, so you got both. They were properly exposed, and the image behind them was maintained. If I shot RAW, the window would get blown out. Properly exposing for them made the background scene too bright. But the Vivo is already doing this computational HDR balancing that pulls information from brighter scenes. So when I see this example from Adobe, if I tap on the window on a Pixel, then yeah, I could probably get this silhouette effect where the people in the foreground are completely shadowed. But even on a Pixel, I would have to believe that if I tapped on their faces, if I actually took the fraction of a second to think about what I wanted in my photo and that these two people were the subject of my photo, I feel like most phone cameras today would arrive at something a little closer to the second image, not the first image, being super, super dark and in silhouette. So I have not had a chance to play with Project Indigo. I'm a little anxious that... So what it seems like to me, the big hook here is, what if we brought a slightly longer exposure to a normal daylight auto mode? Think about how insane the night into day photography is on a Vivo. It could be pitch black outside, and it takes like 3 seconds of scanning, but I can make it look almost like a daylight scene with accurate colors, and information and texture and detail just get pulled out of what should be an almost completely blacked out frame. And Vivo's already been doing that with their night modes and their landscape photography modes. I mean, in earnest since like the X70 Pro Plus. So what is that, like 4 or 5 generations of phone now that they've been on the bleeding edge of this type of HDR style processing. So it looks like engineers and scientists at Adobe said, well, what if we did that too? And our big hook is we're stacking even more lower noise RAW files to make this stacked DNG processed JPEG HDR effect. And so that's cool. So if you shoot with a lower ISO and there's less noise in each of your RAW files, there's less noise that you have to clean out of each RAW file, and then you squish all that information together and you can pull out information from shadows and you can rein in clipped highlights in brighter areas of your frame. It's how brackets have always worked. We've always had this ability. You could shoot a crazy bracket of photos from a mirrorless camera or a DSLR and then squish all those photos together and arrive at an HDR effect. But here it seems like, even for daylight, what Project Indigo is doing is kind of what our other phones' night modes do, only now with some more design on high contrast situations. One of the examples they have is a museum piece, harsh spotlight information on a part of a sculpture, and then the rest of the scene is kind of blacked out and shadowed, almost vignetted shadowing around the edges, but it can pull more information out of the shadows, and it can kind of rein in the harsh spotlight on the sculpture's face. But also then there's a daylight effect. What if you did this for your lunch eating outdoors, or there's like a tomato vine? And these look like cool photos. They look really nice. But I also think that this is part of the problem that we face, especially in North America. The output from this so far doesn't look radically different or better than what we can already achieve with Xiaomi, with Oppo, with Vivo Ultra cameras. It's kind of cool that we can add a bit more of this stacked processing to any phone, or I guess right now any iPhone. But I'm not, I don't know, I'm just not wowed. I'm not particularly impressed. This doesn't seem like it's a fundamental improvement. It seems like a brute force. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. This doesn't seem like it's any specific adaptation or iteration or improvement to the types of photography we're already doing. It just seems like a brute force approach to adding more data into the computational pipeline, which I guess is fine, but there's nothing stopping a Google from doing this in their own camera app. There's nothing stopping a Xiaomi or a Vivo from just doing the same thing in their own camera app. And I get a little twiggy when it's like in their own write-up, DNG, JPEG, SDR, HDR, and all that. Are you kidding me? That's one of the titles of your section explaining the science on how to create like a hybrid SDR, HDR type of mapping for the data. You know, it's all that. We're hip, and we're like hip and cash. We're cash. We're not all sciencey and stuff. So I get it, but if you have a Galaxy S Ultra and you capture, you know, sort of their processed raw files, you're kind of in the process of doing what Indigo is doing. If you have a Xiaomi or a Vivo and you get one of their super raw, or I forget what the Xiaomi is. It's not expert raw. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. We already create these stacked DNG files that abbreviate a lot of the HDR editing and processing and get you to a relatively noise-free image with lots of information to edit from. It's like, this isn't magic. It's just, it seems like it's a product built out of consumer ignorance. The Adobe name is going to bring people in because Adobe's like Lightroom and Photoshop. But a lot of these people, maybe not on iPhone, but a lot of people on other smartphones with great cameras, if they just went one setting into their camera app, would probably see that they have a lot of this stuff already available to them. I think some of the stuff, like you take one image and then you have mapping of what a standard definition photo would look like and an HDR photo would look like. I think some of that stuff more explicitly stated, like what is the relationship between this image capture and what you can share with other people, that would be cool. Because it is kind of a bummer. Right now, there's like a tone and highlight mapping that happens on Vivo, where when I share that photo, it might not always look like that on someone else's phone screen. But on Vivo to Vivo, and then you pull that photo up and wow, and it pops and it looks so good. You know, so stuff like that I think could be helpful. If I send this to someone, will they see what I see? And if you have that kind of mid-chain processing data where you could say, hey, this is what the standard definition is going to look, the standard dynamic range is going to look like, and this is what the high dynamic range is going to look like, that could be kind of cool. That's to me, that's not worthy of shooting out of a completely different camera app. It just seems like part of the hook here is you could shoot in Indigo and then send it directly to Lightroom so that you could finish your edit. So that's pretty great. So I love all this. It's got pro controls. So you can control your shutter speed, your ISO, and your white balance. But if it's a stacked DNG, then you're not. It's giving you the equivalent. That's what a pixel does. Right now, a pixel doesn't let you control the shutter speed and ISO. It delivers an approximation of what that shutter speed and ISO would have looked like in a pure manual mode, but it's still a stacked and processed image. So unless I can pull one distinct RAW file out of this, it's still going to be an issue with things like shooting action. So I love it. Out of all these photos, let me scroll through this site here real quick, and then we can kind of move on. But I want to show this off here. We're going to go to the top. So there's a woman on a field. That's definitely a posed portrait, and you can see where there is a distinct highlighting around her face over like the shadows on her arms and stuff. And it's almost, to me, that looks like kind of a burn and dodge tool. Like they went and edited on top of what the camera did to really make her skin and her face pop, where she is a completely different skin hue and complexion over her arms, where she is whiter in the face than she is on her exposed shoulders. So then we scroll down. Here's a clock to show off the noise reduction capabilities. Okay, well, that's definitely a static object. Then there's the cute little couple posing, and they're in silhouette, and then they're bright. They're not moving around. Then there's people hiking up a mountain hill, but that would be a pretty slow subject to get a photo of. Then there's this little like ground squirrely thing eating. That would probably be a faster exposure. So I'll be curious to see what are the capabilities of something like this? Are you really going to capture good, clean, sharp movement, or are you more frequently going to be capturing blur? If I shoot in auto mode, even on a Xiaomi, I'm probably not going to get crisp action. Even if I activate the sort of sports action mode on a Vivo or a Xiaomi, what happens is I still end up with an HDR processing effect, and then there's like a plasticky noise reduction that happens to the image because the noise reduction has to be more severe. They have to crank the ISO to get a faster shutter speed. That happened, we went to a concert, and I loved that I was able to get some pretty cool, some really fun photos, but if you zoom in even just a little bit, you see that hard, contoured, almost embossed line around someone's like face and face wrinkles, because the noise reduction has just been so aggressive at just obliterating all of that. So especially for Lexi softball games, on my phones I've been shooting RAW so that I can guarantee that I've got critical focus on home plate. I've got an insanely fast shutter speed, which means I have to use a higher ISO, and I can freeze that action, and then I just have a little grain to deal with. There's a little color speckle that is totally cake to ease out of the image in an app like Photomate R3. But I know I'm getting a crystal clear lock. Some girl sliding into home plate. It looks so good. And it's so sharp. And there's like actual detail, not that weird, smudgy, over-sharpened structure effect from the HDR processing. So yeah, Rongo was looking it up too. It looks like it's only for iOS. And I don't know, maybe iPhone cameras need that. You know, iPhone cameras aren't that great. So they probably need a lot of help. I couldn't help that. That was so snarky. All right, I do want to cover these kind of stories hand in hand. I am not an Xbox gamer, and I'm kind of a retired PlayStation gamer, and I've become a super patient gamer. So like, I haven't felt any burning need to buy a PlayStation just so I can play Spider-Man. I'm happy to wait to eventually get Spider-Man on PC. Totally fine. You know what? I don't need to be at the tip of the spear. I don't need to be the first in line. Eventually, if that gaming experience comes to a platform I'd rather support, I'm there. But Xbox has really been in trouble lately because of how the entire gaming industry around them has kind of evolved and changed and morphed, and how Microsoft seems to be focusing more on being a publisher, acquiring game studios, big deals happening from these acquisitions. And now we're seeing sort of the effects of everything can be an Xbox. We just recently saw the Asus, the Xbox ROG Ally. So a little handheld. Why would Microsoft make their own handheld if you could just have kind of an Xbox effect on any handheld, right? So this is a very interesting strategic partnership that's being properly announced. I don't think anyone's surprised that Microsoft is turning to AMD. So this is from the Xbox Wire, their own their own blog talking about the industry. Xbox and AMD advancing the next generation of gaming together. But I'd like everybody offline or off this podcast, go to the link and then just watch this 1 minute video from Sarah Bond. Sarah Bond, president of Xbox, shares how Xbox and AMD are working together to advance the state of the art in gaming silicon. It's a lot of empty corporate platitudes, but she does mention that the next generation of Xbox hardware, collaboration with AMD, AMD APUs, so CPU, GPU technology, AMD has just been all over consoles. They are the winner in home gaming right now. But Sarah Bond specifically mentions that the future iterations of what an Xbox is, well, you're not going to be tied to one interface. You're not going to be tied to one store. This is a gaming embrace. Anywhere, from anywhere, to anywhere. How you want to game is how you're going to game. And it sounds like the next version of what an Xbox is just going to be a Windows 11 PC. So if most of your game library is on Steam, this could be an easy way to make sure you've got a powerful box behind your TV so that you can play your games from Epic or GOG or Steam or Xbox. And for a lot of us, I mean, I kind of feel like it's a move that's been a bit overdue because, like, our primary gaming experience is now a little mini PC that's behind our TV. It's a 9th gen Intel Core i9 with a 2080 Ti. It is still an absolute monster at 1080p gaming. I know there are times I kind of feel like, I'd love to have like kind of a 4K rig back there and really like get that raster performance up. And then I just don't care. Again, for my daughter, the hot new game coming down the pipe is going to be the new Sonic racing game coming out, I think, in September. So I've got that on my Steam wish list. You're like, okay, I don't think I'm going to need anything too crazy beefy to do a 1080p Sonic racing game. It's going to be fine. So in light of Nintendo's strategy, which I think is Nintendo's last year to make a hardware-based walled garden, Nintendo experiences on Nintendo hardware, third-party sales for games on Nintendo Switch 2, apparently very disappointing. Underperforming like crazy for third-party titles, but of course everyone's out there basically just playing Mario Kart, right? So Nintendo, I think this is the last year that they can fully lock in this kind of strategy, and they'll eventually have to look in the next like 5 to 8 years, how do we open this up? How do we bring gamers in? How do we compete if literally anything can be an Xbox? The main competition is not going to be a PlayStation for that philosophy. Not necessarily in terms of money generated, but for that philosophy, PlayStation's not going to want to do that. They want you to buy a box. Nintendo's not going to do that. They want you to buy a Switch. But Steam, I'm running Steam OS on a little mini PC, AMD APU. It's wild how much fun that is. It's like having a Steam Deck, but a little more powerful, bolted to the back of a TV. And it's even more convenient to use because I don't need to have
a keyboard and mouse to really control the UI like I would if I booted into Windows. So Microsoft's big play here is, what if we could make Windows more accessible from a controller-only interface? Which we've been asking for since the days of Windows XP. I just since Windows XP. We have wanted, so XP Media Center Edition, we wanted that, and then for it to be good for gaming. And we're finally getting it now that the Steam Deck has kind of shown us that, oh no, Linux is starting to build market share with gamers, which is hilarious. Oh man, it's so good. From Michael C, I wait for games to be at least like 3 years old and 60 to 70% off before I play them. I rarely pay more than 20 bucks for a game. Often I pay 8 bucks or something. That's what I don't think Game Pass is that good of a deal. It's $240 a year now. Think of how many discounted games you could buy for $240 that you could play, then use at your leisure. So, I think no, you're because I'm not arguing with you. I think you're correct. I think there is a gamer who wants to be on the bleeding edge, and then Game Pass makes a lot of sense. I really do like the idea of ecosystem where, like I was showing, I had that little Geekom mini PC, $200 machine, right? Intel N150, what formerly would have been called a Celeron. A computing experience that in the past would have been punishing to do basic stuff on. And that's where I played most of Doom the Dark Ages over a game streaming solution. So, when you break down the costs, you're right. A couple years of that is a computer and multiple games, a handful of games. Say you did that for 3 years, that's over $700. You could definitely build a little 1080p rig and then go to these game sales and have a decent library. Just go to Epic, build an insane library of fun to play games just on the free game of the week, right? But that's not a bleeding edge gaming gaming style. Someone who really is getting lit up about a new release, just like what I was when I was a kid and a new Nintendo game came out. And if we couldn't afford to buy it, we were hoping we could go hit Best Blockbuster and rent it before everyone else got their hands on it. Like there's a part of that where you can look at this as the investment in an insane library, kind of Netflix style. But ultimately, I agree with you. If you can plan ahead just a little, I don't even think you need to wait that long. So I spent full price on RoboCop Rogue City. I got the Alex Murphy edition. Like day one, Steam, ready to go. I loved that game. I was so happy to support the devs on that game. Just it was such a labor of love to a style of cinema that I adore, a style of science fiction, nihilistic satire that I just thought was incredible. And I gave those devs my money knowing, hey man, there's no way this is going to stay like a $50 or $60 game. I can't remember how much I spent on it. A week after I got it, you could go to Fanatical and get that game for like, I think it was $25. And the Alex Murphy edition was 30. It was like literally half what I spent. And now it's like, I think I've seen it on sale for like 10 bucks. So we didn't even have to go 2 or 3 years. Like the PC game sales can hit that hard, that aggressive, depending on the IP. If it's Spider-Man, you know Sony's never going to let it be the $5 game or the free on Epic game or something like that. If it's God of War or Horizon, which I still need to dig into more. Like I'm only just now catching up on Verizon, and that is one. It's like, man, I kind of wish I had been playing this on PlayStation because this is a really good game. But I'm a patient gamer and I'm enjoying the experience. I can't make content on that because it's not new and in this moment. So, sorry, short story, incredibly long. I don't think Game Pass is a great deal, like you're saying, Michael C. I don't think it's a great deal anymore, but I do think it represents a change in philosophy, and I think it could still be very good for that specific kind of gamer who wants the library, wants the newest of the new, is always looking at the best. And now that can be combined with a much more modest piece of hardware behind your TV. Like, I was kind of shocked. Great 1080p 60 gaming on an Intel Celeron grade mini PC. And I had decent enough download speeds to support a really good player experience. That's kind of great. Like, we're good. That's fine. So again, I would definitely check out what's going on with this Xbox announcement, because the focus here seems to be a much broader range of collaboration. I think Microsoft is really afraid of what Valve is doing with SteamOS. I installed SteamOS on an AMD powered mini PC and I flipping love it. So the other component of this is what to do about glasses, what to do about VR. And it looks like Xbox is entering into a collaboration with Meta. So just like we saw with the Asus, the ROG Ally Xbox handheld, we could be getting an Xbox branded Meta Quest soon. Now, I still don't feel I'm ever going to give Meta any of my money. This is the closest I felt like maybe I could get a Quest since it's an Xbox thing, but I'm probably still not going to get one of these. I feel like Meta and Facebook have done so much damage to everything that I just really don't want to support them in any way, shape, or form with any of my money or data or time. But if you were going to partner, like, say, again, Microsoft totally flaked on the mixed reality initiative. I have my Acer mixed reality headset up there in the closet, and it's now totally defunct because they pulled all the support for MR. Oh, let me take a quick drink of coffee here. My voice is getting real fuzzy. So Microsoft totally cratered their own most recent VR MR initiative. So instead of rebuilding it from scratch, it would make a lot of sense because, and I've said this in numerous podcasts before, if you look at the sales numbers of Oculus and Quest headsets, they rival the Xbox platform. Oculus, all on its own, should be considered a game console competitor at the same tier as what Microsoft is doing with Xbox. So if you were to link all of those numbers together and you could start cross-pollinating the Xbox experience showing up on Quest headsets and Quest gaming exclusives showing up in your Xbox library and your Xbox catalog, that is peanut butter jelly time for these two companies. And I think that would be kind of cool for gamers. I fundamentally refuse, and I will not spend money on Meta products, but I also don't want to see VR headsets go underutilized. VR is this incredible platform for content consumption, and I want to see more companies taking advantage of it and moving it forward and finding interesting things to do with it. My money is going to go to Valve. Whenever Deckard comes out, I know for a fact that there will probably be some technological compromises to be made on the optics, or what is it, LCD, or is it going to be OLED, or what kind of image, is it going to be as high resolution as a Vision Pro, and I don't care about any of that. What I care about is putting a Steam Deck on my face. And so I will pay more money to a company like Valve so that I can have that Steam Deck on my face experience, and I'm gonna be good. And I will sleep fine at night knowing that maybe it would have been really similar if I'd just gotten an Oculus, because then I didn't give Facebook a dime. And I think it matters who I do business with. And that's fine. Other people are going to make decisions for their own entertainment dollars, and I'm not saying that's what you should do. But I'm telling you, that's what I'm gonna do. But I am interested here because if anyone can move some of these VR experiences forward, this kind of collaboration should help entice developers to maybe revisit some ideas for VR. And I really need developers just to do some of the basics. Like what you can do on a Vision Pro if the game isn't really a VR game is just kind of have it floating out in space in kind of like a big movie screen kind of presentation. Even just the basics without having nerds find their own ways of like kind of patching and presenting games. If more game developers did the Tetris Effect solution, Tetris Effect in VR is stunning. It is incredible. But it's still just Tetris. It's not like you're VR 3D flying through blocks, falling. No, 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 no. It's a window. It's Tetris. It's right in front of you, but it is so much more immersive. If you could bring that to some of our other gaming experiences where the main experience is still just the screen that you would have seen from like a monitor, but you are more enveloped by the experience. If Microsoft can help bring some of that to the entire catalog of Xbox, library of Xbox games, even that would be huge. But my money, I'm going to be going to Deckard. I'm putting it out there right now. I have a chunk of cash sitting in the Some Gadget Guy fund for new devices that is solely dedicated to when Deckard launches to get a pre-order in as soon as some type of site goes live. And I genuinely don't care. I don't care what the technical specs are going to be. The Steam Deck was such a motivating force for me to rekindle my love of gaming that this is going to be the salve I need after so many previous VR projects have gotten hosed. Like, it broke my heart that inexpensive headsets were just being relegated to e-waste because of Microsoft. So now I feel much more confident that if I jump on another headset, the company that has a huge chunk of my game library is probably interested in me spending more money with them and buying more games and playing more games. So I'll go with Valve. Because we can't count on some of these other previous VR initiatives. This one is literally just a part of their FAQ. I'm really happy that I kind of curtailed my PlayStation use after the PlayStation 4. We sent my PlayStation 4 to my cousin just so he had something to game on because we weren't really using it. We were using the little mini PC under our TV, and we never got a PlayStation 5. We shifted over to the gaming PC because one of the things that was keeping our marriage intact, Marie and I, was kindling a love of bourbon and playing Tetris until we couldn't see straight. We just for hours in the peak of the pandemic would kind of pour bourbon and just watch Tetris blocks fall until like our eyes were just like totally bloodshot. And it did. It kind of helped us sort out our feelings and talk about stuff. And it was, I really do. I credit Tetris for keeping our marriage intact under some really scary circumstances. So one of my all-time favorite VR experiences is the game Beat Saber. I'm not breaking any news here. I think Beat Saber is fundamentally one of the best ambassadors for VR. Almost anybody. I still encounter so many people who have never put any kind of display on their face. And young and old, I can put Beat Saber on someone's face and they get it. And they get into it. And maybe they suck at it, maybe they don't. I even got one of the reporters on Fox LA. I wish I could find the video clip of it because he's just wildly, randomly swinging at everything. He is failing at the first couple measures of every song he's trying, but that dude was into it. I don't think he's done anything with gaming or VR since, but like, it doesn't matter. Universally, Beat Saber is this on-road, this on-ramp, I should say, to what VR could be. I think people have this like 1990s science fiction idea of what VR is, and it's, I put on this headset and then I can see and I'm in another world and I'm shooting guns and jumping and oh, but what if I get motion sickness? And Beat Saber eliminates all of that. And you get moving and it feels good and the music is great. And then once you start to get the mechanic, it's like, oh, this is so much fun. It's like I'm drumming but with lightsabers, and I'm kind of dancing but I'm not. And you feel so powerful. And then you see video of what you're doing in real life and you look like such a goober, and we all have a laugh and it's great. And unfortunately, the developers behind Beat Saber are pulling out of the PlayStation game. So this is from the Beat Saber FAQ, end of support for PS4 and PS5. As we look to the future and plan the next big leap for Beat Saber, we have made the decision to no longer release updates for PS4 and PS5 starting in June of 2025. Our passion for VR remains unwavering. We are excited about the possibilities that lie ahead and what we can bring to Beat Saber fans who have been on this journey with us over the past 7 years. So this won't, if you have Beat Saber for the PS4 or PS5, you will still have access to content that you previously purchased. Beat Saber will still be available for purchase on these devices, and you can still play or purchase songs or music packs that were released prior to June 18th, 2025. But no new content will be released on the platforms after that date. And starting on January 21st of 2026, multiplayer will no longer be available in Beat Saber for the PS4 and PS5. So it's kind of sad. I really had very high hopes for PlayStation VR. PSVR 1 was this weird hodgepodge of existing technologies to just, it was basically a functional proof of concept. And maybe they pushed a little too aggressively in trying to sell what was kind of an incomplete solution. But it was immersive and it was interesting. You played Thumper in VR on a PlayStation 4. It was awesome. Played Tetris Effect in PlayStation. It was awesome. And the PSVR 2, I feel largely addressed a lot of the issues that we had with the PSVR 1. But then it was like Sony completely gave up on it. Think about how little news there's been for PSVR 2, how few announcements there have been. Even just like developers trying to make PSVR 1 games compatible with PSVR 2 was a really disappointing conversation. And now, here is one of the ambassador titles to VR. How few people out there have really experienced VR, and how many you can hook with really good, simple mechanic like Beat Saber, and that's not going to be accessible for PlayStation gamers anymore. The easiest game to get someone interested in the idea of VR is no longer going to be on the PlayStation platform. So I don't know. It really makes me sad that like one of the biggest announcements for PSVR is that the Apple Vision Pro is going to get PSVR controller support. So I guess if you own a $3,500 mixed reality headset, now you can use PlayStation controllers with your headset. To me, that really feels like Sony just scraping, just giving up on what could be a niche, a smaller part. But think about where we were with the kind of developer support that you can encourage in the PlayStation catalog. Oculus competes directly with Microsoft, Xbox in terms of sales. PSVR could have had a more substantial impact if we had continued on that iteration and that advertising and the marketing and getting people interested in it. Hey, you want to have the most powerful console under your TV? Here's the PlayStation 5. And don't worry about if you want to play with VR, you could buy into a completely different ecosystem, a completely different catalog of gaming, a walled garden of games over on Oculus, or you could add on to your PlayStation experience, and you got to push that. You got to push that idea. There's really no reason why the attach rate on PSVR 2 shouldn't have been significantly higher. It's so disappointing, and now we're losing good games. So I want to wrap up just our kind of core show here. I know we're going over 2 hours. We always go over 2 hours. I was making fun of, you know, non-repairable phones when I was talking about my Note 4. Well, there's a big leak out right now, and I'm very interested in how this is going to be launched. Coming by way of Android Central, written up by Vishnu Sarangapurkar. I apologize for grossly mispronouncing your name, Vishnu. Fairphone 6 is switching to a new design that's even more sustainable. So this is the Fairphone 6, expected to retail for about 550 euro. It should be launching in like a day or two, but we've got sort of the leaked specs now. Pretty stoked to see we've got a Snapdragon 7S Gen 3, a good mid-ranger chipset that's battery efficient. 120 hertz display, 4,400 milliamp hour battery. That's not great, but what this thing has are screws on the back of the phone. So you got this little back plate, you just take out these screws, and then you've got access to this battery, and then you just unscrew these little tabs instead of adhesive or glue or other issues. You just unscrew the battery, pop in a new battery, close up the back plate, and your phone's ready to rock. So if you ever do need a battery replacement on this, you're in pretty good shape. It's going to launch with 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gig of storage, and then also have a memory card slot, expandable up to 2 terabytes. So we know for a fact this is probably going to be a mediocre camera phone. I seriously doubt Fairphone's going to have like the bestest of optics and cameras and sensors and lenses and stuff. But this looks like a much better mid-ranger solution. It's a little pricey at $550, right? We're talking the 7 Gen Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 and probably adequate camera technology. But just the whole idea that it's designed around a frame that is easy to disassemble and do one of the most basic longevity repairs, replacing the battery. I'm much more interested in this than I have been in previous repairable or Fairphone style solutions. Often it is such a huge compromise in terms of performance, in terms of fun, in terms of content creation and content consumption, but it's super repairable. And you're like, I get that. If I had super basic needs and all I cared about was a phone that could last for a decade, then maybe that would be cool. But I actually do care about having a little horsepower in there and having a decent screen for media consumption. And I hope the speakers sound pretty good. Like, I don't want to spend 10 years with a phone that's not very fun to use. And this is one of those iterations. This is one of those refreshes on the design that to me looks like it should be more fun to use, and with the idea that hopefully I can fix it easily if anything goes wrong with it. Michael C., I know, me too. I hope Fairphone brings back the 3.5 millimeter port. Looking at the leaked photos, I don't think this is gonna have it. There's no shot of the top of the phone, but there is a shot of the bottom of the phone, and there is no headphone jack on the bottom. So unfortunately, I think we're still losing that, which is stupid, and it's a bummer. But again, I'm hoping that this is something that we see. I hope this is a trend that we see forced by the EU over the next 2 years. Fairphone could just be ahead of the curve. We know that there's regulatory policy being cut right now that states you have to be able to make devices more repairable. I just did that interview a couple weeks back with Lucas Gutterman over at PERG, US PERG, talking about it's cool if we have right to repair, but right to repair doesn't mean that our devices were designed to last. So that's their big campaign, is the designed to last campaign. This is a product that looks like it's designed to last because you can actually do stuff like repair it. If I give you the right to repair a Galaxy S25 Ultra, how many people in your circles of family and friends could replace the battery on a Galaxy S25 Ultra? Not many, right? But if I design the Galaxy to last longer, more of those people should be able to do something like take screwdriver, unscrew backplate, unscrew battery, put in new battery, screw that back in. Maybe you need to reapply a new gasket so that you have better water resistance, and then screw all those pieces back together. That should be more accessible. That should be designed to last. So I think Fairphone might be ahead of the curve here. I'm hoping this forces the hand on companies like Google and Apple to start doing things like not just maliciously comply with right to repair legislation, but also it needs to be demonstrable. It needs to be accessible. And like the HMD design is another one that I think could go into this, where you've got one screw on the bottom of the phone that undoes like this entire case lock that can then pop components out of the back plate. We could do that with any phone. There's no reason why an iPhone shouldn't be that easy to disassemble. I mean, it's right here. We could do it. And then we start, I know I'm speculating and I'm getting a bit silly, but then like having a bigger camera assembly should actually be easier. Having silicon carbide batteries. So yeah, this is only a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, but what if in 2 years, Fairphone sells a 6,000 milliamp hour battery upgrade? Wouldn't you want to be able to not only replace the battery, but upgrade your phone? I think that would be pretty cool. You know what I used to be able to do? I have this phone over here on my bookshelf that I just had to retire after 11 years of almost daily operation. The battery that's in it is a third-party Zero Lemon battery that is higher capacity than what the phone originally shipped with. On my Galaxy Note 4, after I think, what was it, 2018? So after 4 years of operation, it got an upgrade. It was better than how it was at launch. And there's no reason. There's no reason. I pick up that Note 4 and I think, man, we've spent almost a decade in this dark timeline of Apple cynical squeezing consumers for incomplete products and accessory add-ons, and it's so dark. And there's a glimmer of hope here that we can course correct and get some of what we used to just take for granted back. This Fairphone looks like it's the spiritual successor to the Galaxy Note 4. Only without, probably a class-leading camera for its generation of technology, without the stylus support. Yeah, sure, it doesn't have all that stuff. But the battery. And if you can get a battery upgrade, I am silly excited for the potential on that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it's where we are. Aw, Aunt Kathy. Always love Mondays and listening to you, Juan. Love you guys, Aunt Kathy. Everyone say hey to my Aunt Kathy. She's good people. I owe you a phone call, Aunt Kathy. We haven't talked in a bit. And I know like lots of family stuff is going on. So I should just say hey. We'll make that happen. I'm just catching up on some of these other comments here. I wonder if Linux Mobile OS could run it instead of Android ROM adjacent. I'm not sure on Fairphone because I really haven't handled one for any length of time. I might try and pick one of these up. It could be kind of just like an interesting counterpoint if I can get one imported from the EU and not pay out the nose on tariffs. From Michael C, I like that they give the power button a little color. I liked when the Pixels did that. And what I really want to do is get one of these Fairphones and then do like a two-tone color swap. So like replace the back panel with a different color. Because I loved doing stuff like that with like my G.I. Joes back in the day. You could disassemble like a G.I. Joe's hips and you could stick the legs on a different G.I. Joe and come up with like hybrid Joes. Loved it. Loved it. I love doing stuff like that. So I'm definitely If I get one of these, I'm going to start asking like, well, what if I needed a repair or a replacement backplate? I had the green one, and then do like a black and green two-tone combo kind of thing. I think that could be kind of fun. J-Man 150. Oh yeah, silicon carbide. Yeah, we could easily add 20 to 30% on the battery capacity with the technology we have today in the same form factor. And if we went another 2 years and then saw what this tech could be scaled to, I would not be surprised if in the same form factor, in the same battery capacity shape, we could maybe get a 30 to 50% improvement in overall battery capacity, which would be wild. I love it. Oh, you're right, J-Man, with the silicon carbide is the car version. Silicon carbon is the phone version. You're right. I've got my sciencey words confused. Sorry about that. JGJ, US 5G support. I'm crossing my fingers. So I did get one little question in here that I want to scroll back up to from Sun John. Hey Juan, are you still liking the OnePlus Pad 3? I got mine on pre-order. I have my OnePlus Pad 3 here with me in the office. Woohoo! Almost dropped a bunch of stuff. Still really love this tablet. I'm almost done writing. Again, this script got way out of hand, but I'm doing a comparison between OnePlus tablets and Xiaomi tablets, the OnePlus pads and the Xiaomi pads, and just kind of talking about the evolution that we've seen in the tablet space over the last year. Because we are in kind of a premium tablet renaissance. And I feel like companies like Google are kind of missing the boat. The Pixel tablet was so good when it launched as a competitive price option, trying to do new things, and then Google didn't iterate. They didn't give us a Pixel Tab 2. We should be on Pixel Tablet 3 at least. And so companies like Oppo and Xiaomi are our main competitive alternatives to Google and Apple and Samsung in the tablet space. Really like this as a potential laptop replacement. Really interested to see what OnePlus might do as we start getting more word on Android 16 updates, maybe betas, hopefully soon, knock on wood. The only thing I don't love is OnePlus's keyboard case strategy is still the least sticky. And it's got this little like lock. So you close it and the back plate clips into, I've got schmutz on my case here. I've been putting a lot of use on this thing, so it's got lots of stuff all over it. The kickstand latches onto the keyboard case. And so when you pull this out of like a backpack, that helps keep everything connected a little bit. It's still easy to get one of these pieces to slide off, but it's still kind of the flimsiest version of the two-piece keyboard stand solution that I've seen. So over the OnePlus Pad 2, I don't think OnePlus has really improved their keyboard solution. I still like that it's wireless. So at any point, I can just detach the keyboard. I can still type and control the trackpad. I can move the tablet. This helps a lot. Like I was in a doctor's waiting room, and there was a little end table next to me, and I was working on a script, and I popped the tablet, put it on the little end table, kind of sat, 3/4 sideways in the really uncomfortable waiting room chair, and I was typing on my lap. So that kind of stuff is great. I wouldn't even have had the room to put a laptop on my lap. Those chairs were so uncomfortable. So this helps create that solution. But the overall implementation of this little latch and the magnets that connect everything, not my favorite. Other than that, the Pad 3 is maybe the best bang for buck tablet in the premium space you can buy. It really does a great job going head to head with iPads, going head to head with Galaxy tabs, undercuts them a lot on price. And I still feel like you compromise a few of the power user features to end up with a much better overall daily driver companion device at a very good price, especially if you were able to buy it with any kind of sale or promo or something like that. So I definitely have more to say about the Pad 3. I've got a comparison video that's hopefully going to be coming out soon, and then I want to do a follow up on gaming. I know I just said like I don't want to make gaming a part of my job, um, but also I feel like there's a technical component to this that I still feel I can contribute to without being like, hey, and come watch my game stream, because I don't want to turn the actual gameplay into a job. But man, so many good games on Android right now, and so many good game streaming solutions, and so many good emulators. It's pretty cool. I'm just saying, could be fun. Oh, Ron Guido, I remember when laptop batteries used to just pop off. And who was it? No, who is it? Is it Panasonic? Panasonic still sells their business grade laptops where they do that. I also love anything rugged. So like my G-Tac, that has hot swappable batteries. That's kind of cool. There was someone reached out about doing like a review on a rugged Windows tablet, and it had these really cute like rear. They almost look like when you see like LED light panels, how you have batteries on those. It almost look like little laptop battery sides. So you could hold it from the back off of these batteries that kind of became grips. But I don't know that that product's even really going to make it to market. But yeah, we used to have that. You could just, hey, oh no, my laptop battery's running low. Let me just switch batteries. Oh, I can keep going now. Imagine doing that with like ARM-based components where you get like 20 hours of battery life, and then you could hot swap. From JMan150, did you see that the Nothing Phone 3 might get a great bump in charging and that it'll have the 8S Gen 4? So I did hear that Nothing Phone 3 is going to get the 8S Gen 4. I didn't see what its bump in charging. So let's see if we can find that. Phone 3 charging. Charging. There we go. Oh, so there's some rumors saying that it might get 100-watt wired charging. That'd be really cool. It would be nice to see Nothing Phone start more directly competing against why I like One Pluses. I think that'd be cool. 8S Gen 4 is going to be a monster chip. That's going to be fine. Yeah, this could be fun. I still, I mean, like, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Nothing fans. And people who pick up the phone and they like the phone and they use the phone, and that's great. I cannot care about aesthetic parts on the phone. That is just not what gets me lit up. Back in the day, it was people complaining about wasted chin space on an HTC or a fraction of a millimeter of bezel around the screen, and I just couldn't care. If the device was functional, if it was powerful, if it got stuff done, if I could still kind of customize it to do the things I wanted it to do, then I was good. And so when a Nothing is presented, and I know this isn't the totality of the experience, but when it's presented as an Android skin with kind of a dot matrix effect, a collection of a couple individual apps from the company, first party apps from Nothing, and then lights on the back of the phone that can be used as sort of notification or other situational awareness for the device. That's not for me. Right now, I have smart glasses that give me all of my notifications and turn-by-turn directions, and I'm now even starting to use them a bit more for some of my search and reactions and responses. I still will wear a smartwatch so that I do not look at or handle my phone unless I absolutely need to. And I'm not going to have this phone flash lights at me to get my attention when I'm trying to reduce the distraction of my phone. So the Nothing doesn't deliver for me any improvements to my current phone relationship. But for people who want those features, I want them to have the best versions of that experience. And this sounds like a nothing that will finally compete more directly against phones that I've loved, like the OnePlus 13R, right? For me, it makes way more sense to recommend a OnePlus 13R and a OnePlus Watch R. And then you've got this great combo where the watch is your gatekeeper and gives you the notifications and alerts in a more organic, close to you kind of experience. You don't have to worry about your phone screen or glyphs or lights or anything like that. That to me is a great combo. That's a great relationship, and it achieves for me what I want to do in minimizing distractions from my phone. So at some point, I am gonna have to spend some time, but really, I've just been waiting. I've been waiting for an actual US release. And at that point, then maybe I will do more than just play with one, because I've played with every single nothing that's come out. I've not lived with one for any length of time. I don't feel qualified to review them or even share like a first impressions. But the philosophy of what they market is what turns me off. I want to look at my phone less, and I only want to handle my phone with purpose. When there is something I need to do on that phone, then I will pick up the phone. I don't want to go looking for other distractions. And anything that's like an always on display, a display notification system, all of my gaming phones have RGB lighting and that can be customized to deliver alerts or notifications. All of that to me is just distraction. It means when I'm looking up at the world around me, the phone is begging for my attention. And then I can get back to what I was doing, and then the phone is begging for my attention again. And I don't want any of that. So again, I want you to love your nothing if you love your nothing. But I also need people to kind of appreciate there are people like me who are just inundated with notifications and messages and alerts all day, every day, 24/7, 365. And so right now, I have dozens of little rectangles all around me, and none of them are trying to get my attention. I have disabled all of those communication features on all of them. Let me, when I say, like, this is just what I can hold up right now on camera. So that's directly in front of my face right now. None of these are making noise. The outer display, this phone is on. The outer display is not doing anything to get my attention on this little flip phone. And then oh, I got to be careful because I almost caused a smartphone cascade. And just from my recent reviews over here on the table to my side, I've got another set of phones, and here are some tablets, and the tablet covers are closed so that alerts and notifications aren't lighting up these screens either. If you lived at all like I do, all of these things are on. You would go crazy. It would drive you mad to have glyphs and AOD and smartwatches and headphones, all of these giving you the same alerts and notifications and messages. I can't handle that noise from one phone. There's no way I could handle that noise from a dozen devices all at once. So the nothing does nothing for me. I, I hate that because it's like I want to be excited for people who are excited. That one is just a bridge too far. I want you to be happy. I want you to love it. There is no energy there for me. Oh, and it's me, Oxy. Hey, what's up? He says, "Hi, sir, Juan. Good to see you. Loves from the Philippines." And loves right back to you, Philippines. Happy to see you. So, I think we gotta wrap this up. I've talked way too much. Take a quick sip of coffee here. We are out the door. All right. So, folks, I genuinely don't know what's coming up on the channel. I have multiple videos in various states of production, but cool stuff is coming. The summer is kicking off. I'm definitely wanting to get on those water blasters. I want to get that video out, turning my mini PC into a SteamOS machine. I've got a camera comparison that I think will be, I don't think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really nerdy, but that might be just what we need right now is two massive, awesome smartphone camera titans doing battle and then comparing the results from two of these camera systems. There's a lot. There's a lot up in the air right now. So I hope y'all are along for the ride. I hope you're enjoying your gadget time and we're still finding fun things to talk about, like how Juan is super cranky pants about lights on the back of his phone. He's too easily distracted, that guy. You should just get over it. So, folks, stay tuned. Thank you, everybody who tuned in, part of the live chat. Definitely appreciate it. And of course, we continue these conversations throughout the week over on patreon.com/somegadgetguy, over on the private Discord. It's also where I kind of host the more cut down, edited, ad-free versions of the podcast. If you're catching this on the audio replay or if you're seeing this on the YouTubes, I would greatly appreciate also any sharing, subscribing, all of that smashing bell icon kind of terminology. We work really hard. All of us work really hard to continue contributing to good information in the tech space. And the more we can share and collaborate and support each other, then the better these conversations get. Otherwise, we have XAI dumping pollution into our environment with no way to stop them because Ted Cruz said no. I don't want that to be the future. I don't think you want that to be where we go either. So we speak up and we contribute and we become a part. We don't let other people just make these decisions for us. SomeGadgetGuy.com, where all the show notes and links are going to be. Patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy, the best place to go if you want to support and get exclusive content. And of course, YouTube and social media and all that other fun stuff. So I will catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your mental energies, mental health. Keep this brain intact and running well so that you can keep being the amazing tech neighbors I know you can be. Catch you back here next week. I love you all. Be safe. Take care.